That was one of the things that was really helpful when I did the doctoral work, is the research behind the doctoral work. I did research like I had never done before in the 40 years that I had my business. It was really in depth and consistent and really drilling down, and that helped me so much in my writing skills. The ability to say, what's behind this? What's really driving this issue? So I definitely believe that the study of your audience is really critical.
Everybody, welcome back to Living the Next Chapter, author podcast, where great to meet authors from around the world who write books. I've had authors who have come on the show and they've written their first book. They're so excited. They get it out to the world. It's a big labor of love and it hits the world. And then I have authors who come on the show who have basically created their own library over the years, writing so many amazing books to help people. And today's that type of author. James Gregory is here with me on the podcast, and we're going to jump into his library that he has for you as a reader and share a little bit about his story as well. You're going to love the conversation. James, welcome to the podcast. So glad to have you here.
Thank you, David. It's great to be with you.
Excellent. Tell everybody where you are in this great big world of ours.
I currently live in Bradenton, Florida. Spent my career in Manhattan and New York City, and also have a place in Williamsburg, Virginia. So I'm a snowbird, as they call them down here.
There you go. We send some Canadians down there from time to time as well.
We sing the Canadian national anthem at our club.
There you go. I love it. That's good. Yeah, we want to maintain that wonderful friendship we have with our American friends.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's super important. Tell me a little bit about your journey. You have done so much in your career over the years, and then you add on authorship and writing. What's the blend there? Like, how did taking your career and your writing, how did that kind of mash up?
Well, I was blessed to have a great partner in my business. I met my wife and future partner when I was 23 years old. We were both 23, and we launched this company. We both wanted to have an advertising agency, and we were the tiniest advertising agency in the world of advertising agencies. So there must have been 10,000 competitors when we came out, and we were the smallest and least likely to succeed. And we studied our audience. We looked at the people who are interested in advertising agencies, the potential clients out there, and we tried to identify what their needs were, what they were interested in understanding and reading. And we developed a system called the CoreBrand Index to measure the success of advertising campaigns. And then I started writing about it to create authority. If you have the idea, that doesn't really get you on their page. You really have to become the authority. And there's nothing like a book. In my career, there has been nothing like a book to really create that authority. And if you write a book and you start talking about it, you go out and give speeches and do book signings and just get it out into the marketplace with authority, you become the authority on that subject. And so I became an authority on what we called corporate branding, and wrote a whole series of books over my career, and that was 40 years. And we cranked out books left and right, and we were very, very fortunate that our first publisher was McGraw-Hill. One of our big clients was Business Week. So Business Week was owned by McGraw-Hill. McGraw-Hill would publish my books, and Business Week would promote them in their sales groups around the world, and they would hire me. This is unbelievable. They'd hire my wife and I to travel the world, to visit all the cities where they did business, to be able to give speeches and sign books for which I was getting a royalty. I mean, it was just it was just
Wow.
unbelievable. We hit the jackpot right away. I won't say it was instantaneous success because it wasn't, in all honesty, but it was a success that built on itself and really grew over time. Uh,
Wow.
some of those books, may I
Yeah,
talk
please,
about them?
please. Yeah.
Some of those books, they were all hardcover books, and some of them were books like Marketing Corporate Image, The Company as Your Number One Product. This came out in multiple editions from McGraw-Hill. Leveraging the Corporate Brand, and with Bernie Flanagan, who was the publisher of the Wall Street Journal, got behind that one. The best of branding, the best practices in corporate branding. And these were just a couple of the books. And what's really interesting is as I'm giving these talks around the world, traveling around the world in these different markets, they were published by McGraw-Hill in different languages around the world.
Wow.
And it was just phenomenal. The success of that. I didn't really appreciate it as much as I did later, with what a wonderful relationship that was, and how it created synergy, it created energy, and every time I talked, the following around this concept called corporate branding grew. And we had about a 20-year run where these books were the authority on corporate branding. Then a number of competitors caught on and started diluting the concept and coming after us. But we had so much momentum and so many different clients, really great following. But like any business, I mean, as a leader, as a CEO, you begin to get a little tired. Even with all the success we had, we both my wife and I were a little exhausted from it, and it wasn't. There were not a lot of new things coming out that we could talk about. So as a result, we decided it was time to sell the business, and that was 2013. And it took a little while, but we sold the business. And I said, nobody wants the guru to stick around if he's not leading the company. I learned that very quickly, and said, well, what can I do for fun? What's happening that would be interesting? And I unfortunately I didn't like golf, because that's what everybody. I assumed I was going to enjoy golf. I didn't, despite the $10,000 worth of lessons.
Wow. Yeah.
I'm joking, but
Yeah.
beside the lessons, I just didn't care for it a whole lot. So I started thinking, well, what else? What do I really enjoy? And I went back to school and got a doctorate in business and statistics, and I didn't enjoy that either. I mean, I did it because I thought I would teach, and I really don't like teaching. So I'm sort of running out of these ideas. What I do enjoy is writing. The joy of writing is like one of my favorite joys. I also do painting with my grandkids, which is my number one joy in life. But this number two is really close. Number two is writing for the fun of it. And then COVID hit. And
Right.
I said, well, I can continue writing, but my family, maybe I could get them involved in writing. So I wrote a book called Columbia the Street. And this book was about growing up in this rural town in Pennsylvania, Johnstown, Pennsylvania, and how my center of the universe was Columbia Street. And I thought the country of Columbia and Columbia University were named after my street.
Yeah. Right.
And that's how, I was 6 years old. I mean, that's forgivable. So Columbia the Street became a book that we really had a lot of fun writing. And we decided, McGraw-Hill is not going to publish this. What can we do? So we went out to Amazon, KDP, publishing, and started working with them. And for an independent publisher, for an independent author, trying to work with an independent publishing company, that's not a bad way to go. Amazon offers a lot of really helpful tools. They offer a lot of support in terms of writing your book, not so much the actual writing, but the compiling it, putting into pagination and all of that. And it came out I to pretty strong critical acclaim. It was really a folksy narrative that got a lot of very positive feedback in a really rough time during that COVID thing. And so that was my work with Amazon and KDP. And then another thing that I wanted to accomplish right at the tail end of COVID was a memoir about my wife and I and how we met, how we built the business, how we took it into a worldwide expansion, and how we came to the conclusion that it was time to sell the company. And that book is called Small Fortunes. And it's a trilogy of novellas. The first one is called Small Fortunes. The second one is called Stones in a Glass House. And the third is Fortune Teller. So those three novellas are combined in this, and in Small Fortunes, and it became an Amazon bestseller. Now, for that book, I worked with a company called Bestseller Publishing. A guy by the name of Rob Cosberg is the founder of that company. He's got a great little company for helping independent writers to find, to get the help they need to get their ideas into a published book. And they guarantee that it'll be a bestseller for Amazon. And they came through, and this book was not bestseller in romance anthologies, in business life, in management and leadership, and in motivational management. I mean, that's crossing a lot of categories, and I owe it to Bestseller Publishing that helped me do that. So they put all the elements together to really give it a push at Amazon, and so I was very, very pleased with that.
Wow.
But finally, so finally, I decided, okay, enough of looking at myself. What can I do to write a novel? And I always wanted to write the great novel, and I started working on it. But I realized that I needed a different kind of publisher. And for that, I found a company called Morgan James. And David Hancock is the CEO of Morgan James out of New York. And it's a more powerful, it's more of the reminiscing of the McGraw-Hill relationship I had. And so I wrote two novels. One is called Zephyr's War. And Zephyr's War is about the Ukrainian capitalist and Russian mafia before the actual war took place. And
Wow.
It's a thriller. It's fun. It's an easy read. This is the kind of read you want for a long weekend, take to the beach kind of read. And then I have another book out from them called Killer App. And this is about artificial intelligence and the how it can take over the life of the user if you're not aware of all the things that can go wrong or all the landmines that you can step on. There's a second novella that was included with this book called Artifacts. And Artifacts is a fun read. It's both my wife and I are aspiring archaeologists, and we studied the archaeology. And one of the things that's really fun is that when you're an archaeologist and you find this little tchotchke and that's been buried for hundreds of years, you find it and you think, how did the person who owned this before, what would they like? How much of a loss was this to them? Did they just drop it? Did they know they dropped it? Did they throw it away? And how does it relate to the environment they were in? So Artifacts takes you back in time. When an archaeologist finds something, goes back in time, and so it's like a time travel book. And all of these are fun reads, easy, fun, and interesting reads, if I do say so myself.
So with your background in corporate branding and all of that wisdom and knowledge, is there a way to distill branding down for an author that's listening? I think that we as authors, we have a brand, we have our writings, we have our books, we're out there promoting, we're doing all the things. But how do we craft a brand around our writing? How can we distill some of that knowledge for an author?
What a great question. And it absolutely you can. One of the issues I have with that question is that I like changing genres. So my next book is a historical fiction book, and so it doesn't really relate to the thriller kind of books that I've written here before, or Artifacts, where you're talking about a different type of thing. So what I've tried to do is create a look. And my books have my large name, Dr. James R. Gregory, at the bottom, which is not unusual. Authors tend to do that, so you can quickly see whether they're, that they have written these books. And also the look of them is very similar. I have very bold type. I have a dark, a black top. About a quarter of it is black reverse, and it stands out. You put this in a bookstore, and it really pops. And I wish more of them were in bookstores, but it does pop. And the same is true with my other books. The same look, and I'm creating a brand. And I'm supporting that brand through advertising and promotions and podcasts like this. Everything that I do is trying to build that image around the books.
What do people sometimes confuse branding for? But that is not really branding. That's another element. Maybe it's advertising, it's something else. But truly, they confuse branding with this, and you kind of help them realize that branding is very specific, and this is kind of where branding lives. What's kind of those outside things that people confuse as branding?
It is confusing. It is confusing because it used to be called marketing and advertising, but when you're branding, you're creating clear, concise, consistent messages over a long period of time. And the goal there is to identify your audience and pursue that audience with clear, concise, consistent communication. And you're not trying to close the deal on the first time you talk to them. You're really trying to build an impression, build a relationship with that audience. And so that is what branding is all about. It's really building that clear message over the long haul.
It's interesting because in podcasting terms, we talk about branding as well. So on this show, I have every possible guest who writes about every possible topic in every genre from every age. So in that, it's all variety. It's all different. But the tone of the show, how the show is built and structured, the result for the listener, that's the consistent part. And that's part of the brand of this show, is just that feeling you get as a listener. Even though the guests are different every time, we still have a general feel to the show that I would say is consistent to our branding.
You absolutely have a brand. And I salute you for it because you really are consistent. Just so for my own edification, I looked back at a number of your different shows. You're very consistent, and that's one of the reasons I'm on here with you.
Nice. So that's an encouragement for a new author then, is to spend some time thinking about your branding, thinking about the relationship between you and the reader so that you show up in a consistent way. Even if you write different styles of books and different genres, your voice as the author and that connection is really important. I mentioned to you before we hit record, I know from my audience, when they find a new author that they love to know that there's more books from the author, even if it might be outside of their regular reading. They just love the author. And even though that book's a little bit of a stretch for them, they might be curious and go follow that other book just because they love you as the author. So just understand that your community loves to support you and be a part of that. So whatever you can do to be you as the author and be the constant in everything that you write, I think will bring more people to you as readers.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. And the other thing is always keep your audience in mind in the style of writing that you're doing. My audience changed dramatically when I went from business books to novels, and and yet I have followers. The followers of my business books, I've really brought along more than I expected across that chasm to my other style of writing, and it's fun. I mean, it's really rewarding when that happens.
Who inspires you as an author? Who is kind of in your corner as a reader or someone that you admired? Kind of, what were some of the names that stood out to you early on when you started writing?
Well, Tom Clancy has always been a favorite of mine. One of the wonderful things that happened is there's an AI evaluation. I can't think of it now, the name of it, but there's an AI evaluation that you can send your book to in a manuscript form, and it will, within minutes, send back an analysis of your writing. And it's really good. It's really in depth. It was a great analysis. But every time I've written my novels, they come back and say the author that is closest to your writing style is Tom Clancy.
Okay.
It's just like, wow, I didn't expect that. That's fantastic.
Those are influences that flavor maybe how we write or what we appreciate about writing. I see it in music. There's musicians I admire, and I feel pieces of their writing style and how they approach music subtly finding their way into my music. So I'm kind of a mixture of all of my influences as well.
Yeah, I think that's a very good observation. I agree with that. I see. When I like to read a lot as well, and so I'm reading novels all the time. And when I find one that's really good or has a great turn of phrase, it really sticks with me. Not so much that I can copy it, but that I appreciate it and want to give feedback. And I do give feedback if the authors are alive. I send them a note. I said, this was my favorite sentence in that particular novel. And they appreciate it. We're all people, and we are all can use some help along the way.
When you work with different publishing companies for your books, and you showed us on screen and we see it on your website, the look and feel of each of your books published by different publishers, is it difficult to get a publisher to agree to a format of how you like the cover of your book so you have that consistency across multiple publishers?
That's a great question. With McGraw-Hill, I let it entirely up to them. So I approved the cover, but they were the leaders in publishing, and they knew their audience, and I allowed it to be them. But when I started publishing books on my own, writing for myself, I said we've got to create a brand here, and it's got to be consistent. And I fight for that. So I know how important that is, and so that it's absolutely consistent. It's when I say absolutely consistent, I don't mean that. I mean that I try to make it as consistent as possible.
Mm-hmm. So for a new author listening to the show, first time going out into the world to write, can you explain a little bit more about novellas and kind of maybe is that a good starting point for an author to get their feet wet?
Yeah, wonderful books are Breakfast at Tiffany's is a good example of a novella-sized book. It's under 40,000 words is a novella. So,
Okay.
and what's interesting is that's a very comfortable length for me. I tend to write 35,000 to 38,000, and that's when my book is finished. And I'm not going to start filling it with garbage to get it to over the 40,000 mark so that it can be a novel. If it gets there, fine, and if it doesn't, that's too bad. It's just not going to happen. So that's the target for most authors. If they want to write a novel, it's 40,000 words, and a novella is up to 40,000 words. And my latest books, I'm way over 40,000, but it wasn't forced. It's like I don't want to look at how many words until I'm done with the book, and then I hope to be pleasantly surprised.
Okay, so for me, I have this podcast. I have 550 episodes. Somebody comes to my show for the first time. They stand at the doorway and look at all of this content and go, I don't even know where to start, James. I have no idea where to start listening to this podcast. There's too many. For you, you've got so many books. I'm curious, for a new reader coming into your world, where would you tell them to start? Where would be a good starting point to come and fall in love with your writing?
Well, definitely the novels are and they'll be around for a while. Novels have a long shelf life, and they also are more interesting, generally speaking, than textbooks, or the business books. If a person is interested specifically in building a brand, or there are lessons to be had in my business books, but I definitely think they should read Killer App or Zephyr's War as the first. And I plan to make. I have other books in the pipeline. One is called Ghost Town. It's finished. It's in production right now. Another one is called Bloody Moon Rising, which is another thriller, and that's I'm about halfway through that. I think it's important. I write in a natural way for me. I just, I write when I want to write, and I write how I want to write, but each time, no matter how big or small my intention is, it takes about a year to write a novel, to write a book. Now, you think, well, it's a year before my book comes out. No, that's just the beginning. Then there's another year where you're working with the publisher and editing and back and forth trying to get that ironed out. Then there's another year where the publisher is printing it and getting it into distribution and promoting the book. So really, as a new author, if you think of it as a 3-year process, you won't be disappointed. It takes about 3 years. It could take 2.5 years if everything goes well. It could take 3.5 years if you got to do a major rewrite. But 1 year to write it, that's the fun year. That's the enjoyable year. Second year is tougher. Third year is the toughest with the marketing and promoting it.
And that's a key point too. Then going back to the brand, is getting out there to talk about your books, getting out there in the public and sharing your books through book signings, you said, podcasting, just getting out into the social media world, everything. Any tips for authors around getting your book out there and maintaining your brand in public?
Well, I think for me, it's very important to have a publicist. I need somebody, I was a CEO of a company for 40 years. I'm used to turning projects over to other people and letting them handle it. That's probably, for me personally, one of the hardest things that I've had to face is not having a staff to to solve problems and to do minor projects. It's all back to me. The publicist is really wonderful because she is out there constantly pursuing podcast opportunities or speaking opportunities or book signings and that sort of thing. And I enjoy it. I really enjoy speaking with people like you and about something that I can bring to the table. It's really a pleasure for me.
Talk a little bit about websites for an author. Why is it important to have a website for your book? And for you as a writer, why? What's the advantage?
I I had just finished a website for my consulting business when my publisher said that's got to go. he said you need a book publishing website and you don't need to promote your consulting services. And so after working on that for a year, I then threw it out and started over and started working on my book publishing website. And it's a work in progress, and I don't think it'll ever be done. You said you just went on it, and
Yeah.
I'm glad it gave a favorable impression. That's important. But the technical stuff just is tough for me. I don't enjoy that at all.
Having a website, does that support your brand though?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, it does. People get to know you a little bit more than just the picture on the cover of the book. I try to share some insights about what I'm doing and where I'm going with it, and where I've been. And so, yeah, I think it certainly supports the brand.
And I love too on your website how you have reviews also captured for us as readers. Instead of going off to these other sites and reading reviews there, you've brought them right onto your own website.
I've been really blessed with great reviews. I mean, a lot of people get involved with my books and really care. They really express, a deep understanding of the book and bring insights that even I am surprised that they captured. That is hugely rewarding and a lot of fun. That's one of my favorite things is to read reviews. I hate the bad ones.
Yes. I think it also gives credibility as well for the search engines that are sending people your way to know that they're sending them to a good website that's going to give good results for people that are looking for authors and looking for you specifically.
Yep.
To have that domain and to have that website, I think it's just a great reinforcement for all the hard work it takes to write a book.
Absolutely. I totally agree.
Right. So you're saying you're writing all the time. My podcast is called Living the Next Chapter. So I'm putting these two things together. Tell me more about kind of your ongoing working process and what you're working on right now currently, and a little bit more into the future. What are you excited about down the road as an author?
Currently working on a book called Games We Played as Children.
Okay.
And this is really a different thing from the novels that I've written. This is kind of a project. I noticed when my grandkids come over to play at our house, the first thing they do is pull out their iPads and start, put their heads into them. And it's just, I said, look, let's go outside and play kickball. Let's play hide and seek. Let's do something to get them off the iPads. And they sometimes they actually do that. We have, I'm in my studio office here doing this podcast, and we paint. We have art art sessions every time they come, and they love it. And they ask me, hey, that my nickname is Lolo. Lolo, let's go to the art studio, and I love that, and we have a great time doing it. So anyway, games we played as children is my attempt to get older folks, people, baby boomers and anyone else who wants to contribute to it, getting their ideas about games they played that were exceptional and the experiences they had as children. And I've got a couple of hundred of these little snippets, and I'm putting them together in a logical way. But the problem that I have is it's not a typical it's not a typical book. It could be a booklet, it could be a story, it could be a podcast, it could be any number of things, but it's not a book in the traditional sense that I can figure out. I did this one project similar to that, the Johnstown flood. So it's a storybook about the Johnstown flood and how interesting it would be to have it in this kind of format, a booklet than a book. And so that's what I'm working on. I'm trying to find a sponsor for that project, but I do not have it yet.
Well, you never know who's listening. So reach out. I'll have links to James' website. Hey, if you want to help James further that project and get it out there.
That'd be great.
Sure, he'd love to talk to you.
Yeah.
That's great. So James, for your grandchildren, as you see that generation, the importance of reading to your kids, your grandkids, the importance of literacy, writing, reading. How can we make things even more important and more prevalent for our grandchildren and our kids? How do we keep this going into the future?
Well, reading to children is so important, and it's something that they get used to when they love connecting with older adults and their grandparents, and that's something that we can bring to the table that teachers can do it and others can do it, but it's just like something that has to be done on a consistent basis. You have to really get them into the habit of reading and wanting to read, knowing that there's entertainment and a story there. And if there isn't, their fallback position are these games. I mean, the games are very entertaining. So you just have to make a conscientious effort as an adult and as a parent and as a grandparent to read to your children.
Yeah, and keep in mind, parents listening, that not every book is a movie, and not every book has to be a movie.
Right.
So the idea that we can get off the screens and dive into a book and expand your knowledge and the words that you're using and your vocabulary, everything can develop just by simply reading and being read to. I think that's really important.
Totally.
Yeah, I love it. So, James, where do we go then? Where do you want to send the audience to continue the conversation, to follow your journey as an author? And at the end, I have another question to wrap up our conversation, but
okay.
Where would you like to send everybody?
Well, I'd love for them to visit my website. It's www.jamesrgregory-books.com. jamesrgregory-books.com. The R is important in there. I wish I hadn't put it in when I made this up, but there it is.
It's there. It's there. It's great. And we'll have a link to that in the show notes as well. And then I guess let's just wrap up with this then, James. Again, let's jump back to the authors that are listening. Your closing thoughts on starting in 2025, first-time author. Where would you start today if you're going to write your first book? Had you had the knowledge and wisdom of all the things you've done, where would be your starting point today, and how can we help that new author that's listening to the show?
Well, I think the fundamental concept is to understand your audience. Are you trying to reach a specific audience? And if you are, what are the issues that audience has? What are, if it's a business audience, what are the things they're struggling with? If it's a fictional audience, what would you like to say to them and reach out to them? What is it that is important to them? And if you can make that bridge, if you can build that bridge to between where they are and what they're thinking about, you will be so successful as an author. And there are some really good tools with artificial intelligence that can help along the way, like never before. I don't want to overly encourage people to use artificial intelligence, but they're helpful tools that other people are already using to write stories, write books, and it's not a bad way to kind of map out your strategy and map out a direction. So those are a couple of thoughts that I have on the subject.
One thing I picked up on that you mentioned earlier in the conversation, you said to study your audience. I hear a lot of people say you have to know your audience, but I like the intentionality that you said study your audience. It's got to be more than surface level knowledge of who am I writing to.
Right.
You study your audience. You get to know them. You know so much about them, which then in turn helps you to deliver to the audience that you're focused on. So I love that you use that word study over the word know.
That was one of the things that was really helpful when I did the doctoral work, is the research behind the doctoral work. I did research like I had never done before in the 40 years that I had my business. It was really in-depth and consistent and really drilling down. And that helped me so much in my writing skills. The ability to say, what's behind this? What's really driving this issue? So I definitely believe that the study of your audience is really critical.
And if as you listen to this, you're like, well, how important is it? Then go to James's website, scroll to the reviews, and you'll see exactly the results of studying your audience, because the audience responds with why this book means so much to them. So the results of the study are right there in front of you. So go check it out. You'll see exactly why studying your reader is so important.
Absolutely.
I love it. James, thank you so much for doing this. Keep me in mind as new projects come up in the future. I know, speaking for my audience, they love hearing from an author return, give us updates, tell us about new projects, because they get to reconnect not only to this episode, but the one we do in the future. So I'll just leave the door open for you, a little crack, and come in anytime, and let's continue the conversation. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you, David. It was great fun. I really, really enjoyed it.
Excellent, everyone. All the information, as always, for Dr. James Gregory in the show notes. We'd love for you to go and grab a copy. Start with the books that we've talked about. Go look at the amazing way that you can design the cover, even though you work with multiple publishing companies. Great lessons you can learn here just by following along, and great books for you as a reader to fall in love with. You have an entire library to hear. You have a lot of weekends of reading ahead of you. Dr. James, thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks for listening to the podcast. Glad to have you here. I just want to let you know that you can always find out what we're doing live in the moment by going to our YouTube channel. Head over to livingthenextchapter.com. There'll be a link right there. Head over to our YouTube channel. Make sure you like, subscribe, do all the things that all the YouTubers love to say. And in our YouTube channel, a couple things. You're going to get advanced listens. You're going to get the episodes that we're working on in real time. So we record and post daily on our YouTube channel. I'd love for you to give us a follow over there. As well, we're making playlists. We have over 500 episodes. So finding the right episode for you, we're trying to group things into playlists. So if you like children's books, if you like business, you like historical fiction, we're grouping our authors together to make it a little easier for you to find your favorite next author. So head over to livingthenextchapter.com And again, I'd love to hear from you. Hearing from the listeners of the show is great. And I just want to say thank you for being a part of the podcast family. And I look forward to having you back for the next episode. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate your time and your listen. Take care.